Strong men make good times and nuclear weapons. Good times make weak men. Weak men and nuclear weapons make end times. Don't give me any more of this infinite cycle nonsense.
I couldn't help but think of my friend Stephen Meyer, who wrote a book, The God Hypothesis, and how it dovetails with something you said over a year ago now, I think, on the portal. And you were talking about Schrodinger states in society, in culture. You're talking about the reason that we fight about things like abortion, which is in the news, or ending military conflict, or Second Amendment, etc., is because we can't really handle the quantum superposition needed to have subtle, distinct, nuanced discussions. And I was thinking about that in the context of Origin of Life, because it is true that there is no explanation in any cosmological sense of the low entropy state of the origin of the universe. There's no code or something that traces itself to a low entropy state, which is not in some level organized by some mind, as Stephen points out, and that's not proof of God. My as I've told you in the past, my problem with origin of God, origin of life, and all these things is that it always will, at some point, have to agitate for a personal God. But in the context of things like these superposition states, another one that you and I have talked about a lot is the existence of aliens and unidentified aerial phenomena, where it's not clear that one side has the monopoly on correctness. And I wonder, how many of these Schrodinger states can a society handle? We're getting to
We've
our
got to cut it out. This is getting absolutely absurd. I mean, let me go back to my own. I don't know why I have an interpretation of quantum mechanics that I don't know who to reference it to, but I don't know who other than me says it this way. The weird thing about quantum mechanics is that, or quantum theory more generally, is that you get to ask bad questions of a system, and the system responds by giving you answers when it really shouldn't. And that's a puzzle to me, where if you say of a state, are we in a situation where we need freedom or we need safety? When you're talking about the coronavirus, clearly we both want freedom and safety, and we want to somehow balance them in a free society. To say you will only accept one or the other is madness. And that's what a quantum question is. It's where you're asking a superposition. Well, which are you? Are you Catholic or Protestant? Are you pro-Soviet or against the Soviets? There's no idea of anyone saying, I actually really appreciate, some aspect of the Soviet Union, and I really detest others. So this all or nothing thinking is sort of asking inappropriate questions of superposition states.
mm-hmm.
And that's what quantum theory does. It gives you artificial answers at random, whereas classical theory tells you you're asking a terrible question. Now, questions are called observables, answers are called eigenvalues, and the answers that are on the multiple choice portion of the exam are called eigenstates. And you ask a question where the answer isn't any one of the multiple choice answers. It's some combination of them, and that's not something you can opt for. So I think that in a weird way, there is a parallel in our society where we're not allowed to ask good questions that speak to quantum superpositions, at least their analog in questions of policy.
Where do you see us going now? Let's get controversial. With science, with the role of science as the replacement for religion, for gods, for deities, where do you see us going where science is sort of being politicized? Not sort of, let me just be bold and say it. Science is being politicized. It's being used as a cudgel. And I wonder, if we rely on science, Carl Sagan used to say, here, I'm going to bring in my finger puppet. It's my birthday. I can use as many damn finger puppets as I want. Okay, there's my finger puppet, man. I'm going to give you the finger. Carl Sagan used to say it's a real tragedy when a society has unbridled technology and no understanding how it works. And but I think now we have kind of almost like we have worship of science, we have integrated science completely, technology, and we're sort of worshiping science. And so where do you see that going? Is that the reason for pessimism about the next 50 years when we turn 100?
I don't even know how to answer this question. Nobody's really, well, first of all, science isn't in one state. I would like to bring this sort of to the 1971 through 73 issue that you used to sort of launch this episode. Biology has a million things to do because the phylogenetic tree fanned out in all different directions. And so, if you understand something in fruit flies, do you understand it in zebrafish? Do you understand the same thing in C. elegans, the nematode, or in Mus spretus or something? You can ask the same question a bunch of different times, and there's no shortage of systems. So we're nowhere close to exhausting biology. Is it as exciting as the 10 years between the discovery of the double helix for DNA and its understanding as the genetic code by Marshall Nierenberg a decade later? I don't know. You can figure that out for yourself. Is it as exciting as the operon, the pajama experiments? I don't think so, but you can make a good case that things are plenty interesting, and I wouldn't disagree with that. Math has been proceeding apace. There have been lots of great things that have happened. What the heck happened to physics is the really interesting question, because its behavior was very different. The youngest person, I think, to really contribute to the Standard Model turned 70 this year. So there are no young women or men who've contributed to the Standard Model under the age of 70. And that loss of physics, I don't think people understand how catastrophic it is, because physics has passed like thermonuclear weapons out of the public consciousness. And it's the only subject that has really powered the economy at the level of growth that we've seen through semiconductors, through communications and electromagnetic spectrum, what have you, through the World Wide Web, which came out of CERN. When we lose physics, we lose also hope. And I really think that this goes back to the alien question. Let's assume that aliens are here and just stipulate to that for the moment to explore that branch of the decision tree, because people are terrified to even say those words. Mm-hmm. If they are here, do we think that they got here through time dilation from distant galaxies, and that they've just accepted that the cost of exploring the cosmos is that you never get to see anyone again? I don't know. Most likely not. Most likely, if there were aliens here, and this is something I think I haven't said fully in public, they would be here because somebody somewhere in the galaxy would not only know about Einstein, but would know about a theory that did to Einstein what Einstein did to Newton, which is to render, Newtonian physics is a limit of Einsteinian physics. Now the question is, what is Einsteinian physics the limit of? And so when people think about, is it possible to traverse the cosmos, they always say things that are really very puzzling to me. One of which is, you must be talking about faster than light communication, faster than light travel. True. And I always say, well, no, you're trapped in an Einsteinian paradigm where that's the only way to do things in your understanding. But if you have a more complete theory, it may be able to evade the speed limit, like knowing a shortcut, rather than, zooming around on a ring road. If you can go across the middle of the road, for example, you can show up someplace far faster than somebody would imagine if you had to traverse a much longer path. So I personally think that if you want to imagine that humans survive, the odds of us surviving on a single terrestrial surface where every stupid person has a vote, and imagine that you have an Elon Musk, not of a space program, but somebody who has their own individual nuclear weapon, when you start to democratize the power of the nucleus of the cell and of the atom, mm-hmm. It's very dangerous for all of us to be on the same surface, because you could have a virus escape from a lab. You could have a nuclear exchange whose radioactive fallout, gives us very few places to hide. We've got to fan out. And if there's an opportunity to leave, we've got to take it, not because this isn't a great place, but because we have to diversify so that we're not all in the same experiment. Now, I don't want to be in an experiment with, I don't want to be in an experiment with our current leadership. I don't want to be an experiment with an anti-scientific world that is depending on science, hating science, abusing science. I want to use science so that we can separate, so that people who have full belief in, total freedom or total safety, or believe that 2 + 3 equals a chicken, or whatever that is that they believe, they need their own planets. And they need to explore those ideas on their own planets. And those of us who basically want to build our families, build our knowledge of the world, try to be decent to each other, be open to markets, but recognizing that they have failures. People who want to lead a more reasonable life need a divorce from people who think that you can continue with, like the fourth turning model. Oh, it's a cycle and it always goes through. No, it doesn't always go through this, as I've come to say. Strong men make good times and nuclear weapons. Good times make weak men. Weak men and nuclear weapons make end times. Don't give me any more of this infinite cycle nonsense. So, my feeling about this is aliens are hope. In part, if there were aliens here, I would say that the odds that the Einsteinian theory is merely an effective theory shoot way the heck up. It means that those singularities of Schwarzschild and the initial singularity of the cosmological models are telling us that the theory isn't complete, and that there's probably a way of evading the speed limit without breaking it. So that's the madness I'm willing to share with you.